Live right here on this Thursday on the early line on SportsGrid. It is the eve of Christmas, at least in college football. It is the start of the 12-team college football playoff on a Friday night under the watchful eye of Touchdown Jesus in South Bend, Indiana, to begin a new era of crowning a national champion in college football. So to set the stage, who better to join us than one Mark Zeno, live right here on this Thursday on TEL. We will preview all 4 games in the opening round of the CFP, including the first ever on-campus playoff game tomorrow night between Notre Dame and Indiana. Zeno, it feels like the holidays, does it not?
It absolutely does. It's the most wonderful time of year, and who better to spend it with? Ben Stevens and DRS. I mean, if Christmas ever said the odd couple, it's Ben Stevens and DRS.
I kind of get that. I think we okay, that makes sense. Listen, I don't expect this to get
here around a couple of cocktails with the 3 of us at a table debating everything about life. That would go over well.
Maybe it's cold outside. All right, Zeno, let's talk a little college football in the CFP starting tomorrow night. You don't have to wait until Saturday on a Friday night in South Bend. It's the 7-seed Notre Dame in the in-state showdown against the 10-seed Indiana. 7.5-point spread in favor of the Irish. Total stands at 51 and a hook. Zeno, of course, when you look at this game, if you stare at IU, the only other time they were an underdog this season, they didn't keep it all that close against Ohio State in their second to final regular season game. Notre Dame against non-MAC foes has been downright dominant throughout this 2024 college football campaign. How competitive of a matchup do we get to begin the first ever 12-team college football playoff tomorrow night in South Bend?
Look, I got to tell you, we sat here a couple of weeks ago, and DRS, you'll remember, Ben left us in quite a mood about our feelings of Ohio State and Indiana. We ended up being on the right side. I say all that to say that, Ben, you were not wrong in your assessment of Indiana. You were just wrong about that game. I am backing the Hoosiers here, plus the 7.5, and I give them a great chance to win this game outright. Here is the rub on this whole thing. We talked all year long about how Indiana didn't play anybody. Newsflash, guess what? Notre Dame hasn't really played anybody either. And we forget that because they have had a lot less, scares, and they haven't really been ranked inside the top 5. The best offense that Notre Dame has faced statistically all year long, guys, has been Louisville. Okay? In that game, Notre Dame was outgained by Louisville by 115 yards. Louisville had 3 first-half turnovers that led to 17 Notre Dame points, and yet still Notre Dame could only win that game by 7. I respect Marcus Freeman. I respect his defense, but this is a level of offense that they have not seen yet this year. Curtis Rourke and Indiana are coming in, and Kurt Cignetti are coming in with a chip on their shoulder to remind everybody, not only do we belong in this tournament, we're better than you think we are. And guess what? We're going to go upset Notre Dame, a team that lost to Northern Illinois on their home field.
Let me just jump in real quick, DRS. Just real quick.
Yep.
Again, I must remind everybody that the idea I had the Indiana-Ohio State game wrong is highly incorrect. I had one bet on the game. It was Indiana to cover as a 7.5-point first-half dog. I cashed that ticket even despite Indiana trying to ruin it with poor punting and special teams play. Thank you very much, DRS. Continue from where you were going to.
Indiana and Notre Dame, 2 teams that are used to playing in cold weather, so I don't think there's going to be any major advantage either way, which swings us now over to the noon kickoff game on Saturday. That's SMU and it's Penn State. 3 of these 4 games, Mark, we brought up earlier in the show, played at sub-freezing temperatures here. No stranger here to Penn State. This game's going to be played in the 20s. No precipitation, which is great. Slight winds around 10 miles per hour. But we are looking at some of the numbers. The FanDuel Sportsbook here in New Jersey opened this game up between SMU and Penn State at 53.5. Still basically in that range. The number on the game, minus 7.5, now at 8.5. Even some outlets mark up to minus 9. What are you going to see from this Saturday noon kickoff between SMU and Penn State?
Points. Lot of points. Best bet of the week, guys. over 53.5, locked in as soon as the line came out. Look, this is a Penn State offense that just put up 37 points on an Oregon defense that was top 20 in the country in the Big 12 championship game. And you're looking at an Indy Lions offense that's gotten better and better as the season has gone along. Penn State didn't break 30 in three of their first Big Ten home games, one of which was against Ohio State. But they've scored at least 35 in 4 of their last 5 conference games. The one game they didn't, that was on the road. They're home in this one. For SMU, you got to go back to late October for the last time that they didn't score 30 points in the game. In fact, they've only failed to score 33 times this entire season. So SMU isn't scared of anybody at this point, nor is Rhett Lashley. I'd be shocked if Penn State doesn't get to at least 30, 34 in this game. And I think SMU does enough to get to 20 in the rest here. I think we see a lot of points. I think it's a fast-paced game despite the conditions and everything else. I mean, look, it's going to be good football weather. You're not going to see a ton of wind. There's going to be no snow or anything like that. You're going to just get a cold day, which should help both these offenses continue to do what they do, and that's put up points on the regular.
SMU elite up front, 4th best rushing defense in all of college football. Penn State, one of the elite defenses in every major category. But to Zeno's points, both offense can score some points. Penn State, in its first 5 Big Ten games, 33 points or fewer in all 5, averaging just 24.4. They went over in 4 of their final 5 Big Ten games, including the Big Ten title against Oregon, averaging better than 38 points per game. You know, I like the look there. Let's get to our second game of 3 on Saturday. In Austin, it's the 5-seed Texas in the bid stealer of the bunch. But despite winning the ACC championship to earn that automatic berth to the college football playoff, no team, no coach has more experience ever in the history of the CFP than Clemson and Dabo Swinney as the 12 seed. Zeno, this is our largest spread of the opening round. It is the only number that is double digits plus. It's 11.5 in favor of Texas. You look at the over-under in Austin, also 51 and a hook. How do you approach the matchup between the Longhorns and the Tigers?
It's a real tough game to cap, to be honest with you. I'm not in favor of laying 11.5 with Texas. So it would be Clemson or pass from a side perspective for me. But there is a game script where Texas's defense, which we saw is legit, and choke out Georgia, they can do the same thing again here to Clemson. Like, I mean, in the opener of the season, Georgia's defense was probably the best version of itself all the way back, 3 months ago. Limited Clemson to 3 points. Texas defense has been better than Georgia's all year long. There's a game script where Texas wins this thing 31-10. There's absolutely a game script where that happens, where the whole thing stays under. Texas can cover. I think the game script that's least likely is for this to be a shootout. Like, honestly, I don't know that it is. I mean, a shootout probably would favor Clemson. And how much do you trust Texas's offense at this point when it was clearly, again, not a great Georgia defense that they just couldn't seem to execute and take advantage of throughout the entire SEC title game, and particularly in overtime? So, I don't trust this Texas offense at this point. And furthermore, I really want to trust Sark to lay double digits in these big moments when we've seen him come up short more often than not in these big moments. It's a real tall task. I mean, again, it's the game that I'm staying off of, but I lean Clemson plus the points.
You know what's really interesting? 2 of these powerhouse programs, at least in the last 2 decades, Texas for longer than that, first ever meeting between Clemson and Texas in a football game. How about that with the burnt orange on display on Saturday afternoon in Austin? Texas, a favorite in every game this year. 7-6 against the spread. Perfect 4-0 ATS in non-conference action. Clemson as an underdog, blown out by Georgia, won outright in the ACC championship against SMU. Our nightcap on Saturday in Columbus, and the path to a playoff and a national championship next. The nightcap of a Saturday tripleheader in the first ever 12-team college football playoff. It's our 8-9 matchup in an invasion of Volunteers in Columbus, Ohio, as number 8 Ohio State will host number 9 Tennessee. And I use host maybe in air quotes. If you've been following some of the fan base conversations entering the shoe on Saturday night, a lot of the tickets put on the resale market for a college football playoff game, not just simply an Ohio State home football game inside the Horseshoe. Tennessee fans have overwhelmed the system. They've bought nearly 42% of those tickets put back on the market. Might be a lot of orange in the crowd on Saturday night. But still, Zeno, the Buckeyes, more than a touchdown home favorite inside the shoe. It is our lowest total of the opening round of the CFP that continues to plummet, now down to 45 and a hook. How do you break down the matchup between the Bucks and the Vols?
Well, before I give you my play, I will agree with you. And here's the interesting part about what's going to happen here on Saturday. And I'm sort of here for the chaos. If Tennessee goes up like 14-0, how restless will the natives in that stadium get? How quickly will they turn on Ryan Day? You might even see them walk out. Like, honestly, like I think that there's a world where they are that irritated with what has gone on at Ohio State and their inability to beat Michigan and then win a national title that may happen. Now, to your point, Ben, I took a different approach to this game than I have to the other ones. I took a first half under, and I got it at 23.5, and that number is gone because, as you've mentioned, the total is plummeting here. So we're down to 22.5 and 22 in the first half. When I look at a game script of the way this first half is going to unfold, first of all, you're going to have cold weather. Second of all, you're going to have two defenses that are really, really good. And for as much as we looked at Tennessee at the beginning of this year when they were putting up all those points as unstoppable on offense, guess what? We found out their offense against good SEC teams is pretty pedestrian. So you're going to take Nico and you're going to put him in cold weather where he's never played before and ask him to run an offense that hasn't really been scoring against good teams. I don't think it happens. I think there's a game script where both of these defenses show out early and both of these offenses don't do much. I think there's a game script where Ohio State's defense shows out early and shuts down Tennessee, and their offense is good enough to get up, score 2 touchdowns, and be up 14-3.5. I think that one works. I think also the flip is true, where if Tennessee gets a couple of early scores and Ohio State's offense, which is nothing to get excited about, doesn't have the ability to come back against a stout Tennessee defense, Tennessee could be up 17-0 at halftime. I think the least likely game script is where both of these offenses score a bunch and score early a bunch. I think it's going to take them 2 quarters to get adjusted to each other and figure out what each other's defense is doing and how they're going to navigate through that. I think the cold weather certainly will limit Tennessee's offense, and I certainly don't trust Ohio State's Will Howard. So give me the first half under in this matchup.
It's an interesting point, Mark, you do bring up, because when you look at this game, it is going to be a great one. It's primetime Saturday. It's cold weather, but there is something to say about we're on the road. So it's almost like, okay, we can play our own game. We know it's going to be hostile territory. The one thing that we haven't really talked about is like Ryan Day losing that game to Michigan still made the college football playoff, which saved his job. But now, if they lose at home to Tennessee in a playoff game, there's a chance that he's going to be fired later that night or the next morning. Talk to me about like Ryan Day coming into this game, understanding that, hey, if we're down 7-3, that pressure really ratchets up, and maybe that plays a part in this game itself.
I mean, remember, no one cares how you win. People only care how you lose, right? I mean, if they end up stealing a 1-point win, whether it's 16-15, he's going to survive and he's going to be fine. No one's going to care. That said, if he loses the game and loses it convincingly, then there's a real problem. And you're like you said, I think he's fired by the end of that night. There may be some consternation if he loses a close one, and depending on how it goes and how it works out. But the bottom line here is that, as I said, if this doesn't start fast for Ohio State, there's going to be a lot of boo birds raining down in the Horseshoe. It's not going to sound fun. And the Tennessee crowd that's there, the whole orange, is going to be standing up and cheering. There'll be a faction of Ohio State that probably wants them to lose just to get this thing over with so they can fire him and move on. I mean, as far as the fan base is concerned.
You know what will be clenched in a very tight way if this game is tight throughout a majority of it, or the Buckeyes do trail. Now, Ryan Day, who served as the interim head coach for a couple of games in 2018, has an overall record in 6+ years in Columbus of 66-10. It's the second best win percentage at the FBS level, only trailing Oregon's Dan Lanning. 8 of those 10 losses have come against top 10 foes, which is what Tennessee is. The only loss against an unranked team happened to be the 4th consecutive in the game against Michigan. But Ryan Day has the blessing and the confidence right now of Ohio State's AD in Ross B. York for not just the college football playoff and beyond. I still am not fully sold on the idea that if Ohio State gets to the semi of the national championship game or even wins the darn thing, they will still look at him as a great head coach in Columbus. But let's talk about that path, throughout this playoff bracket. because it is the additional wrinkle. It is the most teams. It is the most ever games we have ever seen in the history of college football to crown a national champ. Oregon is the 1 seed in the bracket, but awaits the winner of the tightly contested Ohio State and Tennessee game. The Ducks are the favorites by 10 cents. Texas only 10 cents back at plus 360. The Buckeyes and the Bulldogs of Georgia tied for that third best price at 5-1. Zeno, before we get started, tomorrow night in South Bend, what do you think is the best value or perhaps the best bet to win a national championship in the college football playoff?
Well, the one bet that I would make, and if you can find it out there where it puts both teams in, a Texas-Georgia, third matchup is where you go. They both have the easiest paths. They both have the easiest paths to get there because my feeling is, guess what? That Texas, when they get past that first-round matchup, isn't or get to the semifinals, they're not going to be facing Oregon. I think Oregon might lose to Tennessee or Ohio State, especially if it's Ohio State there where they've already played. So, yeah, I don't know that Oregon has got a favor by getting the 1 seed here, given the way this bracket has been set up. Georgia, again, they're not really going to be challenged. Could Penn State beat them? Sure, they could. I think Penn State probably is a better, I power at Penn State better than Georgia this year. That said, do you trust James Franklin to go beat a top 5 team? The answer is no, because we haven't seen him do it. So, I think Georgia and Texas are on a collision course back to the title game.
So, Zeno, there are some markets out there where you can bet exact outcome, the team to beat who in the national championship. If you just want both into the title, Texas and Georgia, a parlay at plus 760 might be worth a sprinkle. We'll talk more with Mark Zeno up next.